지금 이 자리에 계신 여러분들은 모두 감당할 수 없는 빚을 지고 삶의 벼랑 끝에 서 계신 분들입니다. 게임에 참가를 원하지 않는 분은 지금 말씀해 주시길 바랍니다.
무궁화 꽃이 피었습니다입니다.
그 옛날에 어릴 때 하는 거 말이야? 이 사람을 그렇게 죽여놓고
6개의 게임을 모두 이긴 분들께는 그에게 상금이 지급됩니다.
눈 바짝 뜨고 계세요.
제일 센 중에부터 그게 살 길이.
애들 게임 규칙 단순해.
내가 무조건 이기게 해줄 테니까.
무슨 수로?
무슨 수를 써서도.
이러면 안 되는 거잖아! 우리끼리 이렇게 죽이면 안 되는 거잖아! 게임을 거부하는 참가자는 탈락으로 처리돼요.
Hello.
Hello.
That's a little bit terrifying.
Yeah, it was, sorry. Here, I'm going to leave it on for as long as I can, but then eventually I'm going to die of heat. Not, I mean, look, this is literally just me wearing a colander on my head, but the hoodie's pretty fucking hot.
A bit warm, yeah.
A little sweaty, not gonna lie. My apologies for all of those weird technical. And now the colander is trying to slide down my face as my mouth.
Not very practical, those masks.
No, how the fuck do they do anything? Like all of these people, they're like, oh, I need to pick up bodies, but I can't see shit.
I mean, I feel like the masks weren't just colanders from people's kitchen.
You're
that might have
probably
helped.
right, yeah. But it could have been. Maybe it was. Who knows?
We don't know what their budget department was like.
Well, I mean, considering the amount of billionaires and stuff like that that are on this island or whatever, I'm guessing they had more than the $2.50 from the $2 shop.
Yeah, has anyone done the conversion on 45.6 billion won to?
Yes. I did, and you know what? It wasn't actually as much money as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, no, I'm going to have to. Oh, yeah. Also, the worst part about it is while I'm wearing it, I can't wear my glasses, so I couldn't read the chat at all.
How many dollary dues does that work out?
Let me see. Was it 3.6 billion won?
No, 45.6.
Oh, 45.6 billion. All right, sorry. A billion. This is me typing as I
was going
go.
to say, this sounds like something we could have done before we started the
Oh,
stream.
look, Amy's already done the math. Thank you.
Nearly
Amy.
$52 million.
Australian?
So, yep.
Right.
51.
Yes.
No.
Amy says 38.6 million US dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, a bit better
So-
in Aussie dollars.
It's, yeah, better in Aussie dollars, but at the same time, still not that great. Let's be honest.
Probably not enough that I'd be comfortable murdering 455 other people to get it.
We don't really know what that is worth, though, in Korea, because
True,
in
we
terms
don't
of cost
know
of
what the
living, I
economy
think there's
is
a lot
like.
of maybe complications about the economy that we don't understand, because I kind of read it as more money than one could ever imagine having. And so I didn't do a conversion because that's like plot-wise. I was like, okay, for me, plot-wise, this is more money than I could ever imagine having.
Yeah. And also I think the whole point of it is yes, it's a fuck ton of money, but also it's a fuck ton of money to people who are in extraordinary debt.
That is also a thing.
And I think that's kind of the thing. It's like, okay, it's a lot of money. It's probably more money than most people will see in their lifetime, but it's not Bezos money. It's not Musk money. It's enough to get you out of all of your debt pretty much forever. But
I mean, look, I feel like Bezos and Musk have kind of skewed all of our perceptions of how much money is a lot of money.
True. Yes, that is. I mean, as soon as it becomes a billion of anything, it starts getting a bit ridiculous. When it's okay, not one. Anyway.
What are we talking about tonight?
We're talking about an undersea animal that, when it gets scared, it shoots ink everywhere.
Yes,
right?
Extremely intelligent.
Yes. But also astonishingly tasty.
Yeah. Do you like
Well,
a bit of calamari?
I see. This is what I was going for with this costume. So, in case anyone didn't know, this is the costume that I made for Halloween. And so, anyway, yeah,
made the mask.
I made. Of
you
course,
put sticky tape on a colander.
I spray painted the colander.
Oh, did you? Was it a red
Yes.
one?
Yeah. No,
Oh.
absolutely. Where does one get a red colander these days? Sorry,
I don't
it's
know.
very hot.
Amy has again actually come in with the correct answer, which is we're talking about capitalism.
We are through the means of a TV show that basically the entire world has been talking about and has probably made its creators a lot of money.
Well, good for them.
Yay for capitalism.
45 million won that they're going to get.
Okay, Amy is now getting all up in my grill, or in fact, my strainer.
All up in your colander.
Exactly.
Aren't a strainer and a colander the same thing?
They're actually not. A colander is the bowl with the holes in it. A strainer is the mesh thing.
It is. I know this. But
Okay, where does a sieve come in?
Oh. I'm going to have to look at you, Peter.
I think a sieve is basically a strainer.
But yet we're still not comfortable with one of them being a colander. Right. Okay. Okay.
We've derailed so early here.
We have.
Squid Game.
I do want to point out that this technically would have been a sieve then, because it did have a handle until I pulled it off. So technically, you're all wrong. I was wearing a sieve.
It's a mesh faceplate now.
Yeah, there. It's silver on the inside. It was a sieve. There you go.
That's a great
God, I never have to wear
Kanga wants to know if colanders are the ones that taste like soap. Only to half the population.
Oh, God. Okay, Adsky has asked a very interesting and actually on-topic question in the chat there.
Okay.
Did anyone else find the dub so bad they turned it off?
I didn't even bother.
No. Yeah, I watched it. I watched it in Korean with subtitles. I didn't even try putting the dub on.
I'm gonna watch it in Korean. I'm not that.
I have to admit, I would admit to turning on the dubbing if I'm doing an activity where I cannot sit there and read the subtitles, and I don't care enough about the show to sit down and read the subtitles. So I'll read the subtitles when I'm watching it, and when I want it in the background, I'll turn on the dub. The great thing about Netflix is that they dub in so many languages. Like their machine for getting their content out to so many places is fairly incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, Rob in the chat's making the point that he may have watched with the bad English subs, which is the closed caption ones, as opposed to the actual straight subtitles. And I was told that by somebody that make sure that if you are doing it, watch it with subtitles, but not the closed caption ones, because
that's really a good tip.
Yeah, and I believe because the closed captioned ones actually will preempt some of the action a little bit.
And also some of the nuance with the terminology and things were lost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say the dub was the subs were very well written. Like,
Yeah.
there are times where you kind of, and I did decide to go and have a bit of a look at what the dub was like.
Oh.
No,
No.
no. It was very, very not good. Like, they're doing as good a job as they can, and I know that it is what it is, but the dub is a disaster. That is correct, Casper. And the thing is that, like, there are moments where, you know, you can see what the character is saying, what they're meaning, and the dub is just nowhere near.
I think I might have tried watching a show once before from Netflix, and it automatically played it in English dub. And I'm like, why is this acting so bad? And I think it must have been because the dub, and I stopped watching it, but maybe I should go back and watch it in its native language. It might be better.
Yeah.
That does. And you know what? I've watched shows with excellent dubbing, but it doesn't always translate. But we are not actually reviewing the dub
No.
of the show.
Really? Oh.
We're reviewing the show of the show. And this is an interesting one for me because I have just spent the last 18 months going, I don't want to watch anything violent. I just want to watch happy things with flowers and laughs and Ted Lasso. And then at the same time gone, I might just, for no reason, because we hadn't even decided to talk about it, turn on this show that I know is going to be super violent and a bit disturbing. And I don't know why I did it. I just did. I think it's because of, like, the pretty colors in the trailer. Like the Wes Anderson-esque production design in some of the... And that just kind of stuck me right in. I was like, ooh, I don't want to see the blood, but I do kind of want to see the production design.
Yeah. Yeah. I got... So, actually, Ju, how did you run across it? How did you...
I have a lot of friends on Facebook that are of, like, Asian nationality and heritage and are super into anything Korean or Japanese. And they were all over it. They're like, oh, Squid Game this, Squid Game that. And I'm like, what the fuck is this thing they're talking about? Because I don't browse Netflix. I just am told about a show and I will watch it. So I was kind of like, oh, I wonder what this is about. I'll give it a go. Everyone's raving about it. And I never saw a trailer for it, just straight up watched it. And it was quite surprised and entertained.
Yeah, my partner's son was sort of... I walked past his room and I saw him watching it, and I was like, and then he kind of got to the point where he's like, actually, no, you guys have to watch it. I was like, well, why? And he's like, well, you've got to watch it. Not sure about Mum. And that whole thing, because it was violent and there was, you know, blood and a bit of gore and stuff like that. He was uncertain as to whether or not she was going to enjoy it. But couple of episodes in, it sort of really grabs you. I'm not entirely sure. Like, I've seen a few people saying that the first couple of episodes, or the first episode at least, didn't necessarily grab people. How do you guys feel about that?
I mean, I think the first episode was maybe a little bit, you know, story overload, trying to get on board with this main character and his struggles, which all seem to be very much brought on by his own actions. So it's kind of hard to feel sorry for this person. It's once you actually get into seeing what the games are about and meeting other players that you're like, okay, this is a little bit fascinating. And very quickly you start to side with Gi-hun, the main character, and you kind of like start to actually like this guy, because I think morally he's a little bit higher up than some of the other people that are playing. Whether everybody there is ethical or not is another question.
That's pretty much the entire question of the show, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's funny because I do think that the first episode was a little slow, but it must have grabbed me enough to keep watching, because I had I wasn't watching this show determined to watch this show. I was like, fuck it, I'll flick this on. And then I kept watching. So I feel like there was probably something about the tease of what was to come with the games and wanting to know, well, hang on, what are these games? That kind of kept me watching, even though maybe, might have taken me a couple of episodes to really be invested in, well, now I need to watch another episode. Well, now I need to watch another episode. Netflix, stop it. What are you doing to me?
Are you still watching Squid Game? Yes, Netflix, just play the next fucking episode.
I did lose a little bit of time watching those first few episodes because I put it on of an evening and then it got to about 11 o'clock. I'm like, oh shit, I got to go to bed. Like, I just kept watching.
Yeah.
I had to run it a couple of times because I kept doing other stuff and then realizing that I can't follow it because it's not in English. So you can't walk away from it and go and clean your kitchen because then you're like, oh, in my head, I was still watching the show because I can hear the dialogue in the background, but I don't speak Korean. I have no idea what's happening. So I actually had to rewind the first episode a few times, but it wasn't because it was boring necessarily. It was because my attention span is all COVID-y at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same sort of thing. Sorry, and just to say to Adski, yes, there is the giant Squid Game thing in Circular Quay at the moment.
Yes, the red light, green light, creepy doll was there all weekend for Halloween.
Really, probably a little bit sorry for anybody who's like taking their kids to Circular Quay for a walk because that's nightmare fuel.
Yep. 360 spinning head on a doll.
I was going to say, is
Glowing
it
red
nightmare
eyes.
fuel if you don't know the series, that you don't know what the red light, green light will do?
Coming from someone who was a little girl that also had a phobia of dolls coming to life at night to murder you, yes.
Right. Okay.
It is creepy on its own. You don't even need to know that it's a mass murder tool.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, good. And by the looks of it, they actually have an age restriction on it, so that's good.
Oh, phew.
And the line was it about 2,400 people long? Okay, good, amazing.
It's quite busy.
Yeah, I found that the first episode, I kind of was like, okay, and yeah, there is. If you don't watch a lot of foreign language TV or whatever, it took me a little while to get into that thing of, oh, that's right, I can't double screen, as Karina said. I can't do anything else. I can't even do it while I'm having dinner because, you can't, like, you've kind of got to be able to read constantly. But you know what? That really, to me, I really enjoyed that because it meant that I couldn't,
Yeah, it's a rare moment for me to not double screen a show. So give me more exciting content in other languages so I can put my phone down, please.
And can I also say props to the Netflix marketing team for managing to spin out these massive viral hits that everybody talks about. Because I think the whole pandemic thing has just been one after another Netflix show that we're all like, oh my God, have you seen such and such? Have you watched such and such? Oh, I've got to watch that thing. And I have to admit, one of the reasons I watched this is just because everyone was talking about it.
Yep.
And I was like, I guess they didn't get me on Tiger King, but they got me on Squid Game.
I did get to the point of is this just a hype train? Do I really need to join it? But some people were like, oh, have you ever seen, Battle Royale or these other, competition style murder game?
Hunger game.
Genre. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, yeah, I dig that shit. I'll give it a go.
Yeah, I think for me that was a bit of a kicker, was going, okay, well, you've mentioned things that I actually really enjoy. I love Battle Royale. And if you're going to kind of go, okay, that's a good touch point for this show and a good reason to get me watching, that's for sure. So, shall we have an actual synopsis of what it actually is about?
Ooh, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's something that we do.
Yeah, it is. Thankfully, we don't have any music, and I don't have any accent. So,
yeah,
okay.
Good call.
Yeah.
Don't try doing a glorious leader or anything like that.
He's so Ronery. Not an accent. I said it with a shitty Australian accent. Okay. Hundreds of cash-strapped players accept a strange invitation to compete in children's games. Inside, a tempting prize awaits with deadly high stakes. A survival game that has a whopping 45.6 billion won prize at stake. That's the official synopsis. Wow. Yeah. Doesn't really go into who our characters are. It doesn't tell us much about Gi-hun or Yeah, but that's okay.
That's all right.
We can talk about them because they are fascinating and interesting characters.
And I
Yes.
think that is the thing that ended up
Sorry.
pulling me in more than anything else. Like the intrigue of kind of wanting to know what all of the games are kind of keeps you watching. But I think it's the characters, getting on board with the characters and not knowing which ones are going to fail the next game is kind of the real hook for this show, because some of the characters are kind of great. And you get on board with more than one, and then you get to the end and then you kind of maybe regret getting on board with some of them, which I think is clever. I mean, I think that's good storytelling in my opinion.
And there are characters that you desperately don't want to see win, but you also want to see them stick around long enough that they're still, worth watching. Like there are people you're like, wow, they're a dick, but I don't want them dead yet.
I think it's the whole dynamic of like survival of the fittest and watching that play out. There's something a little bit voyeuristic about seeing that kind of action and rooting for the people that you like, but also like being interested in which way the baddies are going to go. You're like, what are they going to stoop to next? Like, how low can these people go? It's not so much like the premise of the games, but it's like, what actions will these people take whilst playing them?
It's also that kind of thing of self-interest versus community and compassion that's kind of in there with some of the characters as well. And the ones that you really get on board with are the ones that early in the game aren't all about winning at all costs for themselves, but they actually put themselves at risk to help the other people in the game, even though there is only ever going to be one winner of this game. But then how those dynamics clash as we move forward.
That's something I
kind
loved.
of hits you.
And I loved it. I think it's partway through episode 2, that whole thing of going, okay, you can leave. Because I think that to me is what makes this a little more interesting than just because some people sort of said, oh, it's a bit like, Battle Royale crossed with Saw. The thing that makes it to me more interesting than Saw is that it is a social experiment in a way.
Yeah.
And they are given an option where you can leave, and there is
only in a majority rules kind of situation. So in comes the power play and the dynamics of like community and herd thinking and that kind of
and I really enjoyed that you kind of looking at it going, oh god, okay, this is great, they've actually made a smart decision, good, excellent, good on you all.
It's like what sort of moral quandaries?
Well done, show over.
Everybody
what sort
go
of moral
home.
quandaries can a group of people like either triumph in together or absolutely throw each other under the bus?
And I think that also tells you a lot about the kind of people who do come back. Like in that moment, you understand that these are people who don't have anything else, and I guess that's a very clever way of ratcheting up your tension, because you know that now there's not going to be necessarily people who are as inclined to be kind or generous or whatever. Now it's a whole bunch of potentially mercenary assholes.
I quite like seeing the development of our main characters and kind of looking back and thinking, wow, do you think they were on that train of thought the whole way through this process of playing the games, or is this a decision that they came to when their back's against the wall? Like, is this something like a fight or flight kind of situation with a lot of the characters? Are they conditioned to react like this normally, or is this a last resort kind of thing? Mostly I'm talking about Samwoo and his character development.
Sorry, remind me which one somewhere.
Sungwoo is the very prestigious education character that
Yes,
Gi-hun
sorry, Sungwoo. Yeah,
used to
yeah.
know from childhood and
So
admired.
I love the description, and I think I put it in the ticket down the bottom. You know, like find yourself a hype relationship goals. Find somebody who loves you as much as Sung Ji-hoon loves Cho Sang-woo's educational history.
Yeah. So Sungwoo is the golden child of his hometown. Went off to do very prestigious things with a very high level of university education, and is basically the town hero. But through a series of unfortunate events, has found himself in quite the financial quandary of owing a lot of bad people money, which seems to be everybody that plays this game.
Well,
I'm not even sure if Sungwoo owes bad people money. I think he owes money on a more kind of
grand scale.
He owes his investors money, and he's being
people are looking to
investigated for, like,
collect, and he can't pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think others owe very bad people money, like more of a life or death situation rather than like a humiliation situation, which I felt Sungwoo's situation was more of a humiliation for himself and his family, as opposed to
you're right.
a loan shark is going to get me.
Yeah. Sorry, Karina's just asked the other thing. I'm pretty sure more of them would have left if they knew they might die, though. They were given the opportunity to leave after the first game.
Yeah. Which
so
is
they knew
part
that
of my
it was
problem with
life and
that.
death.
Like they were given the opportunity to leave, but the people that didn't make it out of the first game weren't given that opportunity. And none of the characters, and this isn't hugely spoilery because it's only in the first episode. First episode, that's when they find out that this is a life or death situation. They don't know until that first game. So yes, many of them were given the opportunity to opt out. But the ones that didn't make it through red light, green light, were not given that choice. No. Which is pretty brutal.
Yeah, and so they weren't told that before that game they might die. And I think there's a lot of stuff about this being a lot of talk about this being an analogy or a parallel for capitalism, and the point that the games are trying to make to the people involved is about pure competition and things like that. But then there's also this whole thing of going, but you're also just killing random people and you're not giving them a chance. If you want it to be all about the purity of competition and games for whatever point, that's not really it.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of broken things about the motivation behind the people who are running the games that we can talk later in a more spoilery sense. But, the obvious and strong themes that run through this, as Amy pointed out, is capitalism and and that massive power play between if you have something and if you don't have something, and what you're willing to do, or how desperate you can become, as opposed to what you're able to do to people if you have something under this, within the structure of the game, but then also within the structure of society. And I feel like as social commentary, it was not terrible. Like, you don't feel whacked over the head with it, because the construct of the plot and the game is compelling enough not to feel like you're being given a lecture on capitalism is bad. But
and also
it's
a lot of people
clear.
have read different things about it too. Like, a lot of people have kind of gone and taken different things out of it, not necessarily that capitalism is bad, is that
well, that's what I took out of it.
And I think that's what most people would. But I have seen people going, "Oh no, it's pro-capitalism. It's all about competition and only the strong survive." And I'm like, what?
No, that wasn't the good thing about what was happening.
The thing that I took from it is what motivates you to be a good person. And for a lot of people, it was money, and that's the kind of sad thing about it.
Sorry,
well, it wasn't that money was motivating them to be a good person. It was that the money was motivating them to abandon their basic sense of ethics and
Am
morality.
I referring to the last episode?
Okay, maybe we talk about that in spoilers.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting though, because what they do to get to the point where they're talking to these people is they'll work out where their moral center is by playing the very first game, which is the paper tossing game. You know, how much are you willing to put up with being slapped in the face as hard as possible for the sake of a few bucks? And I think that's a very quick and easy way of weeding out people who, you know, have a particular aversion to, you know, pain and or
what their moral ethics are.
Yeah, it's like, no, I won't let you fucking slap me in the face. I may need money, but no.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not sure that's a
dignity is
morality
like-
question so much as it's a self-esteem question.
Yeah, dignity. Like, what's my dignity worth?
Yeah, basic
Yeah.
dignity.
Yeah.
Missy says she would put up with a lot of slapping.
Yeah.
Amy wouldn't mind being slapped by that guy. I kind of miss that, actually.
He was a good looking dude. I'm not going
He
to lie.
wasn't ugly.
Yeah. And also, I did like Chester Andler's point. A lot of number of companies that have been trying to use this as marketing. One of which I literally saw a company that was using the honeycomb to market a car.
What?
So it was Hyundai or someone like that. It was a car company that used the honeycomb with a picture of a car that you had to try and cut out.
Oh,
Completely fucking missing the point that the lead character had been involved in a strike in a car company that had resulted in people's death.
Jesus.
And you're like, oh wow.
Classic marketing teams not doing their research.
Yeah. Or just missing the fucking point, going, this is popular. But yes, very interesting.
How do we feel about the level of violence here? Because I know that that's something that I have complained about frequently in other things that we have watched together, and it's not something that I have been enjoying in my television watching recently. I didn't love it in this, but I also don't know that they could have told the story without.
I think there was a level of taste to the violence. Like, you never saw anybody being shot point blank. Like, you heard a gun fire and you saw someone collapsing, but it was never really, you didn't really see point of entry kind of stuff. And like the blood splatter was very obviously fake, that kind of thing. It was more, I think the actual horror of it probably comes from the tension and the stakes in the moment, and not so much the actual physical violence. Because, I feel like that maybe gets a lot of it off screen.
That might get to the core of why it didn't bother me as much as other things that we have watched recently. This show isn't about violence. It's not setting out to market to you, come and watch this violent show. The violence
it wasn't explicitly visceral.
The violence is a function of the plot, I suppose. And, you know, also I guess that's why God gave me eyelids. But it wasn't like, so for example, I found The Boys a really uncomfortable watch. I found, what was that one we watched? Invincible, a really uncomfortable watch and didn't even finish it. Whereas this one, I kind of slammed. So I just feel like a bit of a hypocrite.
Well, no, there's definitely obvious levels of like the viscera and like the actual graphic violence of it. Predacanga says they didn't relish the violent part, and I think that strikes a different chord. Is that it's not joyous? It's it's purely shock, I guess.
Yeah, and like, yes, there is some you know, gross stuff. There's a brain out of a head or something, but it is, you know, kind of saying, okay, this is bad, but it's not necessarily, as you said, not reveling in it and not going, look how much we can do. The headshots in that first game, as you say, Jill, they're all CGI, and it's just
nothing was overly gratuitous.
Yeah. I mean, there was the whole stuff with the doctor and the
Yeah, but that was a surgical procedure. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
hateful.
It was a fairly grisly surgical procedure.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
nothing was done in a violent manner.
Yeah, and I feel like the point of that was the absolute dehumanizing of the subjects, and in that way, it kind of also felt to me to be a function of the plot, and not like they were just doing it for the sake of having gore on the screen. So maybe that's my line. Maybe we've just found my line. Oh, look, it's like
function over form.
Function over form. But I will say, I think the suspense in this, and especially in particular scenes, was excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the suspense of the value of a character, because you don't necessarily want them to die, or you want them to, something to happen to someone. You desperately want that more than you care about whether or not they're going to be, killed graphically. It's because you invest in them. And I think what's so smart about it is how deeply you get invested in them.
Oh yeah, I also freely admit to crying real tears while watching this.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
the marble episode?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. There was a lot going on there.
I just
Much
want to
to
point
unpack.
out a little bit of niggles that I had with the series.
Okay.
Go for it.
And I think some of them have to be the very obvious grouping of our main characters in one of the games. So in the tug of war game, very high stakes, you could fall to your death playing this game. All of our favorite main characters are placed on the one team. So at that point, you're like, well, they're not going to kill that team.
So
because it's everybody that we're following. I'm like, you couldn't have like divvied them up amongst other teams and raised that stakes and tension a little bit more by saying, oh my God, so-and-so's on the team with those assholes. Are they going to survive? Like,
I get that, but I do feel like it didn't, because it was built into the plot that they weren't placed on teams. They had chosen their teams, and some of our favorite characters had already formed an alliance. It didn't feel that it didn't feel unnatural in the plot for that to have happened. But yes, that did kind of take the suspense away. Yeah. Although I still got some suspense on that scene, I have to admit.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I knew that, but I still experienced some suspense watching it. I don't think it was a bad scene, but yes, I take your point on that one.
Yeah. Though that then gets thrown pretty comprehensively within the next game or so. And I think in a way the structure of the show is very clever in that you think it's setting you up for a particular type of thing. You think that, oh, okay, these are the characters I know who are going to survive and everything. And then, very quickly it turns it on its head and you're like, oh shit, okay, right. That isn't necessarily where this is going to go. And it's very difficult to talk about that without
without
diving into a spoiler. Yeah. Any other niggles, Jill?
Yes, another thing is the weird kind of dichotomy that why are we calling it? Oh my God. Look, Cass was already called it jiggles, and I resent that because I'm quite fat right now and I'm working on it. Stop calling it Jill niggles or jiggles. It's just
nothing wrong with a good jiggle.
Okay, another thing.
It was meant to be Jill's niggles.
Thank you. My niggles are down here.
I don't want to do another thing for Peter.
What was I saying? Shit. Okay. The weird dichotomy in the plot of like, okay, are we following this as like a moral exploration of society, or are we looking at the capitalists that lord over us and take enjoyment from our pain? Primarily the episode where they introduced the VIPs that were all English-speaking cast white people that were extremely poor actors in comparison to everybody in the Korean cast.
There was a caricature feel of all of those characters.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really kind of took me out of the story once they introduced the VIPs. Like, they're all there to place bets and take enjoyment from watching people basically fight for survival, to try to, win a butt ton of money that these people are so flippant about. And I'm like, okay, but what are we really trying to talk about in this story? And it felt like it was pulling away from what the core of the show was actually supposed to be about.
I did see an interview with one of the people who was one of those millionaire, one of the high rollers. And they explained a little bit about essentially why they're acting so shit. None of them are particularly well known actors who were being directed by somebody speaking Korean. And they were struggling a lot with translation backwards and forwards. Okay. So and even also because the editors weren't necessarily confident with it, so they left a take in from one of them that actually has them delivering entirely the wrong lines. So this is one of those things of hitting a deadline and going, shit, okay, maybe we should have gone through and gotten a director who can, work with people.
Or how about edit out all the moments with those people and just focus on the game that was being played at that point?
Yeah.
It does take it to a different level of unbelievability when we meet those characters, because while you can see the themes of the haves and the have-nots and capitalism versus community and all of that kind of thing, those characters do feel like caricatures, and it feels even more unreal than the idea that these people will be playing this game in the first place, that there are this many people that are just kind of happy to be watched and be entertained by the torture and death of their fellow man. Like, I know that there are a lot of sociopaths in the world, but it seemed it does take some of the reality out of it.
I could have bought the story more if the subplot was not these VIPs, but it was like a pirated body parts organization.
Which is where I thought that it was going. And you're right, that would have worked a lot better for me.
Yeah, I'm like, let's get people that are so far down on their luck, people maybe aren't going to be missed, and pit them against each other, and whoever just happens to die, we'll harvest for their organs and sell them on the black market, and that's our business plan. I'm like, I could have been on board with that.
Absolutely. I think it does kind of change it makes it very obvious what we're talking about in terms of capitalism and haves and have-nots, but also I don't know, I felt like it's when you get to the end, you also come to a realization that what this whole game was supposed to be about actually isn't what it's about at all.
Yes, which is another thing about that last episode that we'll talk about in spoilers.
Yeah. Peter,
I feel like Missy's accusing us of not having watched or read Hunger Games.
Slightly different to what's going on here, but
and I mean it is slightly different, but also like part of that whole thing is going, this is a different story and probably could have gone in a different direction.
Yeah. I think the difference here between this and Hunger Games for me is that this feels like it's set in our world presently. Whereas Hunger Games is set in
strictly a fantasy
series. Different world with an established social structure. You can imagine that Hunger Games might be where we get in 100 years if Squid Games is allowed to continue and expands.
Absolutely.
So I do think it's a slightly different, same themes, different feel when you watch it.
Yeah.
Peter, do you have any issues that you want to raise about the show?
Do you have any niggles?
Any niggles? Peter's problems. Peter's problems. Look, I feel like Jill's niggles are very valid. My main, the bits that I didn't enjoy. Not everything you say is valid, Jill. I did not mean it like that. I'm sorry. I meant the Jill's niggles are kind of the same as mine.
Yeah, I understood.
the VIP scenes were the ones that I was least interested in. I was like, stop cutting back to these people. I'm just interested in the characters that I have become attached to and want to know what they're doing. I do not care about these people in this other room. And I just really think that the show would have completely worked, as Jill said, without those scenes. You know what? I didn't even need to, if the show had ended without revealing to me who was behind any of the Squid Games, I would have been totally fine with it, to be completely honest.
Yeah, that's another thing, the infiltrator who we were following for most of it.
Oh God, I forgot about that character. That's not good.
I find interesting because like he is a character that Hwang Jun-ho, and apparently he was added in quite late. The story was very much just the games for a very long time. And then when it was going to Netflix, they kind of went, okay, we need to expand this out, because originally it was going to be like a film, I think.
Yeah, I could see it working as a film.
Yeah, as a standalone film that you go through, do the thing quickly, don't build the characters up as much, focus on the games, and then, so they added in that entire subplot. And yeah, did we need it? Probably not.
Maybe if they were going to go a different way with the story, like we thought it could have worked. You know, if this guy was going to bust the whole operation, sure.
Yeah. But that his whole story was about finding a brother. And I mean, we're kind of like, pretty sure we all know where he's at.
Look, add that to my niggles, because there were a few things about that storyline that I was like, wait, what? This is like a police, like, you know, first or second episode. This is like a police officer who has gone off and not told anyone where he was going. And then like the first thing he does is like randomly murder a character. Like, this is a police officer. Like, oh, I'm not buying this character at the moment at all. Like, no, sorry. That took me out of it a little bit as well. So add that to Peter's problems. Pickles.
Pickles.
Some things I'd love to talk about that are quite spoilery. So do numbers and then just jump into, because I know that there are some things about these suspenseful scenes that we just need to get off our chest.
Yeah. Is there, I mean, there are a few things that I do want to shout out to. I think the production design on it is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And I love the way that they kind of I guess take elements of Willy Wonka and ideas of, you know, childhood and, you know, bunk beds and all that kind of stuff. And, you know,
costumes and sets were very original.
And so smart and also cheap.
Yeah.
You know, 400 and whatever greeny grey tracksuit. Amazing. And probably 800 fucking pink jumpsuits, something like that.
Magenta.
Colorblind.
People debating whether it was hot pink or whether it was red, and I think it was probably in the middle, or depending on how your TV color's calibrated.
Yes, and Bran, I want that guy's phone battery too. Holy shit. Yeah. Okay. I guess
are we rating it?
I think we probably can rate it, and I would love to see some ratings from the lovely people in the chat, so that you can tell us what you thought, and I can write them down and do. Actually, I get the website to do maths. I don't do maths. I am not that smart. Okay, Jill, give me a numerical score of what you think, and I will be paying you this millions of wands.
Excellent. I think I'm going to go 82, because I did quite enjoy it a lot. I found it fantastic that we finally have. Well, look, I'm not going to say, oh, it's an original idea. It's never been done before. It has, but it was done differently, and I liked it. It wasn't a complete knockoff of something else. It did have its own ideas and its own method of storytelling, and I found the costumes and the sets to be quite original. I went on a journey with these characters and I felt emotions. The niggles that I talked about and probably a lot of the stuff that happened in the final episode is what brought my score down. But otherwise, I recommend it to people that I know are into like the horror genre or anything like pop culture-y, that would like to watch it. I would recommend it.
Yeah, nice. Peter?
I would say 80 for me. And the minus 20 is for the characters that I didn't care about, whose plot arcs were more nonsensical than the main characters' arcs, being the police officer and the investors or the VIPs or whatever they were called.
Yeah.
Both of those things were kind of like, ugh, really? But the key plot, like the A plot, really got me in, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to sit at 86 just because it's a number.
Sure.
Either that or I'll go 69 and try and make a really bad joke.
We've done that the last 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, but like the millionaire, like the VIP who tries to make a bad 69 joke, and you're just like, oh, fuck.
Look, I was going to try and find one of these tracksuits for Halloween, and I was either going to be player number 69 or player number 420. You know,
Yes.
There's two numbers we can make jokes about, and it was going to be one of them.
I too was looking for one of these tracksuits and ran out of time, so hence Colander/Civ. Okay, yes, 420 blaze it. I love that we've managed to get through all of this and we haven't even talked about where is his name? Will Nam 001.
When we get to spoilers.
I know, but also, I mean, to be honest, we've barely touched on many of the characters.
Spoilers.
Because it's hard to talk about them without talking spoilers.
Yeah.
Okay,
because
fine.
Spoiler, they all die.
Oh no! It's just how they die. Okay,
Exactly.
we are going to go to a clip, and after which we will return with a whole bunch of spoilery chat about this. So if you are not planning on, if you've already seen it, cool, stick around. If you are now wanting to go and watch it after what we've said, probably best to, toddle on off and come back and listen to the podcast later. Yeah. But for now, we're going to go to a clip and then we will be back. Okay.
Red light, green light.
Oh no.
Oh,
it's in English. I'm sorry.
Green light. Red light. Green light. Red light. With that, let the game resume.
Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars.
Green light.
In other words,
Red light.
hold my hand.
You can't stay there much longer.
In other words, darling, kiss me.
The timer.
Fill my heart with song, now let me sing forevermore. You were all I want, for all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you.
Okay. I'm I'm gonna stop that one there, because I don't want to give too much more away.
Even though it's spoiler time.
I know, but people may have been like, "Oh, that's really interesting. I'll watch that." Oh, hang on, what?
Ooh.
I don't know. I just work here.
I'm glad I didn't watch the dub.
Yeah.
It didn't feel nearly as
Yeah.
suspenseful as it felt when I watched it
No.
in the show.
Also, weird choice of music.
Yeah.
Was that in the original version?
No.
I don't
There was
remember.
no like mood music during that scene.
Wasn't there?
No, it would have all been like what do you call it? Not overture, like I don't know.
Score.
I think
Score, thank you. But there was they weren't playing Fly Me to the Fucking Moon, that's for sure.
Right. Okay.
So interesting clip choice is the
Yeah.
bottom
Sorry,
line of that.
I found it and I was like, it's one thing that I knew was relatively early in the thing and didn't listen to it to find out whether or not it was in English. And my apologies. Oh.
Anyway, you get the gist.
Now I don't need to go and seek it out.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. I was like, I do remember them playing that song in the episode. I just couldn't remember whether it was there or not. But he's definitely listening to Fly Me to the Moon at one point.
Yes. The boss that runs it in his office, he's got that cute little music box with the little wooden figures that looks like a little 30s jazz club. And it's playing the music. It's quite a nice version. I liked it. It was cute.
It still probably wasn't that version. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Now we can talk about all of the things that we'd like to talk about, and Peter could be in the dark.
I did think that had been fixed, but apparently not.
Dear. So, there's a few characters we haven't talked about at all.
Yes.
Probably the most obvious one is Nam, but one that we did just see a tiny bit of in that clip was Ali.
Yes. Poor Ali.
Oh, man.
I was like
the whole marble episode, okay?
Oh my
It was
God.
just heartbreaking.
I cried so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe I just needed to in general, but yeah. Ali was one of my favorite characters, and that was brutal.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
And
but it's not that we didn't know that who was it? Sang-woo had it in him. We knew he had it in him, but my God, that was still very, very brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And seeing how cold he could be about it,
Yes.
and
very calculating.
And the idea that this is a person who was absolutely, working it out as he went and going, this is how I'm going to have to kill him. And you're like, oh, shit. And
to someone who was just, so innocent and so generous and, really pure, wanted to help everybody, was like, respected everybody. His use of Korean language was so honorific. So he was very much put him in a position of everybody is his superior in a way. Whether that's because of like his immigrant status or, whether an age thing or just a respect thing. But that was a real position of power that Sun-woo was in and took so much advantage of poor Ali.
And this is the one that I liked because it followed on from the tug of war. And what you'd set up in the tug of war of like, okay, these people, if you put them all onto one team, they're kind of untouchable. And then the next game is like, no, we're killing half of you.
Yeah.
And I loved that. I mean, it was brutal and it was vicious and it gave us so many beautiful moments for character stuff.
But, another character favorite of mine was Sae-byeok, the girl from North Korea that had, escaped a dictatorship and was trying to bring her family with her. And she was so closed off and cautious of everybody around her, but had finally, started to open up and made a friend
Yep.
of another girl, South Korean.
Yep.
And they spent the whole of the marble game just, pouring their souls out to each other and becoming, very close, to all of a sudden realizing that, one of them is not going to make it and who's going to sacrifice themselves for the other. And,
just emotional violence. And even all of the stuff with Oil Nam, where you're just like, oh, and seeing that Gi-hun is also capable of being an asshole.
Yeah, but then you weigh up the morality of that, and I would kind of think, particularly them being friends and Nam in that moment playing that he had completely lost it. This is an old man who is dying of a brain tumor that is so bad that he doesn't even know where he is.
Suffering with dementia.
I would kind of think in that moment, if he was the character that he purported to be at the time, that he would have wanted Gi-hun to win the game.
And also, I mean, in some ways, it is a kindness, to say, like, you're not going to survive much longer. It is going to get worse for you. So, is it a kindness? No, not really. But fuck, I don't know.
But the acting, man, from the guy that plays Gi-hun, like, you could see the emotion that he was going through of like, am I going to do this? Am I going to really try and deceive this poor old man who is just so genuinely lovely and carefree and, trying to have a good time. But also in this horror universe,
somebody who I've protected, somebody who I care for, somebody who is, losing their ability to use their body, and you, by the time he's wet himself in the bed and everything, you're kind of like, oh shit, I am so invested in Oil Nam, so fucking invested. I'm getting teary and I know what happens at the end. Wow. Yeah.
And then there was the side characters of the people who had gone in as a couple, but having to play against each other. That was, even though it wasn't a main part of the plot, that still hurt.
Man. Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. So that was kind of the big one that really got to me. I also found the glass bridge scene to be pretty suspenseful.
Oh my goodness, that was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I must admit, I went on a bit of a watch everything about this afterwards, because funnily enough, it was very popular, so they put a bunch of shit on Netflix. A bunch of theories, but and reading up on things that you may have missed or whatever, but also the making of it. And there was some amazing stuff in there. Especially the glass bridge. Holy shit, that was actually a bridge. They were tempered glass pieces that they were jumping on.
Wow.
It was only about, I don't know, 5 foot up, but they were literally having to jump from fucking tempered glass piece to tempered glass piece.
Jeez, that's terrifying. I'd hate to think of what the liability insurance was on filming that.
And the one that really fucked me up is the tug of war. The tug of war quite literally was essentially real.
Oh God.
Like the losing team was pulled off a platform and swung down.
Wow.
Like, it was stunt guys, but
makes for realistic acting, I guess.
I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Wow. Like, obviously there is a lot of, filmmaking tricks and stuff in it, but there was a lot of real tension in there. Like, they were literally pulling against a motor.
Wow. Okay.
That was pulling them forward, and there was an edge of a thing, and they could fall off shit. So crazy. So
do we want to talk about this last episode?
Oh, is it? I mean, are there any other things that we
Any
need to
other
touch on
spoilers
before
we
we
wanna
get
get
there?
Can I note my dissatisfaction with the conclusion of the police officer whose name I've forgotten
Yeah.
search for his brother, who
Yeah.
turns out to be the top man
Yeah, the guy running the whole
running
thing.
the
Yeah.
show. And then it just kind of ends with him just being shot and disposed of, and then that plot line goes nowhere, and we don't really care about the brother. We don't really know why he's there. It's like, why?
I
What?
was extremely disappointed by that whole storyline. I'm
Mhm.
like, how about the brother was a victim of this organ harvesting trade that was happening? And
Yeah.
What
and
about
so
the
this
brother
guy's
was the winner of the
investigating.
last game and has, disappeared
Yeah.
with the money?
Oh,
Like-
yeah.
Which,
That's a
I
good one
mean,
too.
is kind of what's indicated, but then no, he's the winner of the last game who decided he was going to keep doing it. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, it was very.
Okay.
They didn't explore
They've left a
it
few
enough.
ends kind of open, so I'm assuming there may be a sequel in the works.
Mm.
Yeah, and Casper's right. We didn't see him wash up anywhere, but I kind of thought that character was placed there to at some point interact with and help our key characters, and it was just
Yeah.
he was just on his complete own plot line that I did not care about in the end.
And,
Yeah.
and it really does make a lot of sense that he was a plot line added in later.
Because he was a device for kind of trying to understand what was happening within the organization of like, okay, well, why is this a thing that is being played? Like, why is there a group that are organizing these games? What is their purpose? And then the purpose just was not interesting.
No. And I mean, you kind of get to an end point and you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
So he was kind of like a failure of a plot device because what we discovered through his actions was not really interesting.
No. And also, I mean, the fact that, he's by the end of it, he's called the police and said where he is, but there's no indication that the cops are ever going to show up or anything like that. I mean, maybe it would have been more kind of like, oh, shocking if he'd had a relationship with a police officer on the outside or something like that, that he was talking to, able to make phone calls or something. And then it turns out that cop on the outside was actually dude in the mask.
Oh,
That kind of thing. But yeah, as it was, the whole thing kind of, fizzles a bit. So, okay, we're going to talk about that big ending and what it all means.
What does it mean, Quinny? Can you tell me?
It means the old guy's not as nice as I thought he was. Ho-yeon's a bad man.
Oh, is he though?
Yeah.
Pretty sure he is.
He's responsible for the death of literally thousands of people, like 400 and something this time, and then at least once a year for the past 15 to 20 years. You're a bad man.
Did we find that a satisfying twist?
I thought it, to be honest, I thought it was a little obvious.
Yeah, not particularly. I mean, again, I feel like maybe it just hasn't been thought through on what the purpose of the organization was. And I mean, I'm all for like this old guy who's dying to, run some fun games, but like, why are the stakes murder? And why are you targeting people that are really down on their luck or hard done by or, struggling with life? And then he kind of like tries to pose it as a moral question to Gi-hun with like, well, what does it take for someone to be a good person? And I'm like, how?
I mean, not
does
straight
this
murdering people is a
relate?
start.
Yeah. How does it relate to everything else? Because like he poses the question of like, see that homeless dude down there that's going to die of hypothermia. Like, would you save him? Like, I'll bet you this amount of money that like no one's going to save him because everybody is a piece of shit. And I'm like, hang on, how does this go back to like what's happening with like playing the games?
Yeah. And this whole concept that he is, setting this up as some kind of moral lesson for somebody,
Yeah, it's like,
But
who's
it's
going to learn the
clearly not.
lesson if you kill everyone?
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
does it mean that 1 out of 465 people each year, or however often you run it, is going to learn a vaguely moral lesson, but probably not because they've just had to kill somebody? Meanwhile, you're doing it for the amusement of rich overseas billionaires. I mean, at no point in time can you look at that and go, I'm morally superior.
I mean, maybe he was just doing it until he found the one person, and I think that person was Gi-hun. Because, like, by the end of it, he's, like, so disenfranchised with everything, and, like, winning the money didn't make any difference to his life because he didn't do anything about what was wrong with it. And then he's just kind of, like, become so jaded now after finding out the truth, and it's like a big fuck you kind of thing. He's like, well, you know, if this was all it was, then what else am I supposed to do? Go out and get a weird haircut and then then decide
what
at
was
the
up with
last
that
minute
fucking
that I'm
hair?
gonna try and take him down. Like, it's a weird one.
Yeah, I struggled a bit with the old hair.
I was like,
Yeah,
"Matt, just go be with your daughter, buddy. Like, just, you know,
Yeah,
what was
get
all
on
this
the fucking
for if you're not
plane."
going to do that?"
He lived for a hobo like a year, and then he decides to get a haircut, and it's like, give me the K-pop special. I'm like, what? I tried, like, it looked so weird. I'm like, you're a 40-something-year-old man with bright red hair now. I'm like, this is not a grown-up. Like, what a weird choice. Just kind of threw me. Really threw me, that hair.
Yeah.
Like, clean yourself up and be an example for your daughter. If you're going to America to try and take your daughter home, like, why don't you want to be the kind of person that she can respect, not some weird hairdressing wearing weirdo? Oh, fuck. I don't know.
Were you guys
It's
also a
weird
little
choice.
irritated that it seems that he, like, took a year to help the people that he promised to help
Yeah.
of his
Yeah.
opponents?
Especially Sungwoo's mother. Like, just
Well,
completely ignoring her. I mean, there's
But
also,
also the little
like,
kid that he left in an orphanage.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Sae-byeok's brother, Sungwoo's mother. Also, like, him trying to deal with his grief and coming to terms with his own mother's death, because he treated his mother like shit.
Well,
And
yeah,
then
and
the poor
like, his
woman
mum.
dies, like, in her own filth because he wasn't there to look after her. And I'm like, I can kind of understand that it would take him a year to probably come to terms with how much of a shithead he was. And even though he learnt a lot of moral lessons while playing the games, that can still be pretty difficult to, you know, come to terms with.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's frustrating because it does sort of fall apart a bit at the end, and like, all of the goodwill that you've built up for Gi-hun.
Exactly. He
kind of, like-
became such a likable character, and you really were rooting for him at the end. But then when he gets out and he doesn't follow through on any promises he made, I'm like, dude, you're just going back to being a piece of shit again.
And that last bit, like, the whole I'm gonna get on the plane and turning around, you're like, for fuck's sake, man. Like, you the one thing that you can do to redeem yourself as a good person, as a father, is to go and actually be the person that your daughter wants you to be.
Yeah.
You know?
But I can
Yes.
also see it from the point of view of, like, I'm going to go back to play the game again, but I'm going to take them down.
Yeah.
Like, I can see him trying to dismantle it.
I can? Yeah. Yes. As Amy puts it, I don't think him abandoning his daughter is the hero moment that they thought. Yeah, no, not so much.
No. Although, maybe leave the daughter alone, because I think she's probably got a more stable life with the
Yes.
stepfather, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a point also.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I'm kind of now realizing when I rated, I didn't actually count in the last episode.
Do
In
we
my
need to drop
rating,
some numbers
because-
down?
You're going to read
Well, no, just a lot of it. I mean, up to the last game, I was really hooked, and then I was really disappointed after that because for these exact things, like, you know, you've really kind of got in with him as a character, and you've got in with the other characters, and he's made them all of these promises, and they've essentially sacrificed themselves so that he can carry out these promises on their behalf. Because if they knew anything, they knew that he wasn't in it purely for the money for himself, and that they trusted he would carry out those promises on their behalf, and then he just fucking didn't. Like, because he was sad. And, you know, trauma is trauma, of course. But from a plot and audience point of view, it was a bit annoying.
And also, like, from the moment that he sees that, you know, the game is still going, you know, that people are being, you know, recruited again. Like, you're like, but okay, so Will Nam's now dead, we assume, probably. So
I think he died at the end of the episode.
Yeah, but then again, I mean, he.
Oh well, maybe it was a red herring.
Maybe. But yeah, like, so he's dead. So now the thing continues without the creator. Does that make it any more or less offensive? Because I think that was the thing that maybe made him go, okay, I've got to go back, is that the game is still running even though the person who created it no longer is. I'm assuming that's the reasoning for turning around and not getting on the plane, but
yeah, I guess so. Yes,
very
Slapman is
important.
still employed.
And I'm sure that he'd be able to get any number of jobs slapping random people. They'd all say thank you. It's a difficult
Still leaves
ending.
a few questions unanswered, but overall, I don't know, found it quite enjoyable. It was different.
Had a ball with it.
Yeah.
Like, for most of the show, I was absolutely hooked. You know,
something that's like definitely in the zeitgeist now. They've even parodied it on SNL already.
Oh, of course they have.
Yeah. You should be able to find it on YouTube. It's Rami Malek and what's that guy I hate? The one that Pete Davidson.
Oh God, right.
Singing a country song about Squid Game. Very weird.
Okay.
Quite
I
funny.
may have to find that for our play out.
Yes, it's on YouTube. You'll be able to find it.
Okay, well, I'll go.
Just SNL Squid Game, it'll come up.
Okay, I will do that. Helps if you're typing in the right box. I've now apparently written something into yeah, there we go. Right. We'll come to that one. So is there anything like where do you think a sequel is going to take us? Because it made some ungodly amount of money. It was watched more than any show ever on Netflix.
Wow.
They're gonna do a sequel.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I guess the story. I don't want a sequel.
Yeah, could have been happy with a one and done if that last episode was wrapped up a bit better. But I mean, I guess we're going to see Gi-hun go back and try and dismantle this organization. We're no doubt going to meet a new bunch of people that we'll fall in love with and root for, and I don't know, hopefully liberate from the games.
Yeah. Do you think they'll do Squid Game International?
I don't know. I'm thinking kind of like a Hunger Games finale style, where like they overturn the
evil organization,
like the hierarchy of society, and
right. I'd like to if they kind
uprising.
Well, if they took a leaf out of the battle royale thing. So battle royale 1 is a bunch of kids go to an island and kill each other. Battle royale 2 becomes about terrorism and upsetting all of society, and what happens if you like. There's a weird bit in there where they praise the AK-47 as the weapon of uprisings all over the world. And it gets fucking weird.
So many incels have taken that to heart.
My word. Maybe we won't do that, but I think there's some interesting ideas that could happen, but do you want them to? I don't know.
Squid Olympics, says Predator Kangar.
I can imagine that. I mean, the other thing is I'd like to see, more like Squid Game stuff, but for Australia, the kind of games that we played in primary school.
Oh,
Down ball and chasey and
yeah.
I don't know. That's about it.
Elastics, hopscotch. I don't know.
Yeah. I like that the cop will be back still with 90% battery. Amazing. Look, thank you so much for joining us. Yes, duck, duck, goose. That would be amazing. I like that. So Friday, what are we doing Friday?
I believe we are talking about historical comedies.
Yes. So
Which was given a clever name, and I don't remember what it is because we went back and forth on it so many times.
Now, we don't mean very, very, very old comedies.
No.
We mean comedic television shows that are also period pieces.
Hilarious historicals, I believe we ended up going.
So not necessarily Abbott and Costello, but
so what kind of shows? Because Peter, this is one of your ones that you have suggested and thought was going to be a fun time. So what kind of shows were you thinking of?
Because I noticed like a pattern in there seems to be a few of these released recently. I mean, I know Jill and I have been watching Miracle Workers, which is a delightful show, and the second 2 seasons are period based. I watched a show a little while ago on Apple TV called Dickinson, which is a comedic interpretation of Emily Dickinson's life, which is a totally confusing watch, I have to say, but it is a comedy. What else were we watching recently? Oh, The Great, obviously, which has a second season coming out soon. And I'm forming a list of other things that we could potentially talk about. Some recent, some less recent, but very well known.
She's checking it twice. She's going to find out.
Doing my homework.
Don't. It's only November 1st. Do not go there.
I'm sorry.
Until Mariah Carey rises from the grave, can we talk about Christmas?
That's the fucking thing. I got into the car to drive to work yesterday, and the first thing I turn it on, and there's fucking Mariah Carey, and I'm like, oh my god!
No way!
Like one day, not even one fucking day.
What happened to 12 days of Christmas? Why can't we just start fucking later in December, man?
Looks The Great is looking good. Norseman, says Elskenorga. Which I have seen bits of, and it does look very funny.
Norseman is actually on my list as well. It was surprisingly funny, I have to admit. Although there's some thematic material that I don't love, but I think I told you guys to watch it because I'm like, there's this weird show that I started watching, and it's actually a bit of a laugh.
Excellent. I did say, I started watching it thinking it was going to be another Vikings. It wasn't another Vikings.
No, that's why I didn't want to watch it, because I was like, this is just going to be some violent, dramatic Vikings show, and it's so not when you watch it.
Well, you better give me some homework this time, Peter, because I think there's a lot I haven't seen.
I'll send you a list. You can dip into a couple.
Great.
Right. Well, as per usual, I can't raid because we're using Streamlabs, so I'm going to share our Squid Game SNL bit. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all of your support. As always, I have been Quinny.
I've been Jill.
I've been Peter.
And
we'll see you on Friday.
Don't got a lot of money. Drive a rusted out Chevy. I just got laid off. Board tab ain't paid off.
My ex-wife hates me. Even had to sell my puppy.
Yes, I'm broken, it's a damn shame. Yes, I gotta play the Squid Game. Yes, I gotta play the Squid Game. My only option is the Squid Game. Have a number, not a real name. Cause I'm playing in the Squid Game.
Weird guards, pink guards, locked us in a big room.
They got symbols on their faces like the...
If you need Squid Game summarized for the water cooler talk, love country music, and need a giggle, SNL has got you covered.
Okay.
If you're like most
am-
folks, you pop in and out of seasons of Saturday Night Live as they churn
I
through
am
new
I am
featured
so
players.
angry.
Have you either
So
of them, or you're
angry.
taking a
I am so fucking angry.
Wow.
You know what?
Like, you tried.
Yeah.
I was so enjoying it too. I thought it was, we were doing so well.
Oh well. Oh, maybe everybody else can go and look it up.
I was going to say, you'll probably be able to find it, even if I couldn't. You know what? Screw you, SNL. You're dead to me.
Not SNL's fault. It's whoever posted that video.
Yeah, well, screw them.
Anyway, the Honest trailer's fun too.
Yes, it is. There's a lot of fun stuff out there.
Yeah.
Enjoy, and thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
I wanna live in a world full of heroes, not sit here counting zeros in a cubicle downtown. I wanna look out my window, see 'em flying, and swing across the horizon as I cheer 'em on so proud. Depowered girl keeps staring at her face, and call Colossus and have them teach me ways and then we'd exercise. I'd be one of the guys. Martial arts from iron fist and wall. I'll dap her up and teach her all my songs. Oh,